So I loved watching her as a character get more and more incensed with him. And he has this huge ego. So he thinks, oh, well, no one can do this. And he's getting more and more PO'd about her that like that. You meddling kids, you know, it's one of those things. Only it's like, I can't believe it's her again. You know, how, you know, so there's this real thing that's going on before them where they're both becoming more hateful of one another throughout this whole thing. And some of the, I want to call them hand-to-hand combat scenes between them are pretty brutal.
Fitz of Writing.
Good evening, everybody. This is Sean, your host for the evening with Fitz of Writing on another author interview. This week, we are sitting here with a thriller author, R.H. Score. Would you like me to call you Ralph during the interview, or would you prefer me to stick with R.H.?
Either one. Either one's fine. Ralph is my given, you know, so.
Perfect. But this is your first novel that you've written, as far like
Yes.
that you've published and everything.
Yeah.
I believe you said you wrote something when you were in high school.
Well, I've written a lot of commercial content and scripts and that kind of stuff. But this is my first shot at really anything literature-wise, you know, so very freeing in a lot of ways. I didn't get constrained by the usual 110-page, properly formatted screenplay and all that. I just got to tell the story, which was great.
Yeah, it is a really fun thing to kind of twist a story that you love out of one format into another, or to get into being able to play with just the written word alone and by itself. The first book I published was originally intended to be a video game, and I cannot make one of those by myself. I'm not good enough at the 3D modeling stuff, but I really wanted to get the story out of my head, so...
Well, it's interesting because this was originally going to be a treatment for a graphic novel. It wasn't even because I wanted to use it as a storyboard to, you know, for a movie is what I was looking for, and it just took off. So it was, you know, it was a lot of fun. It went a lot deeper than I thought it would. So
that's awesome to hear. Well, I don't think we've mentioned the name of it yet, but the book that we're talking about, the first in a trilogy, I believe you said in your submission, is Model Citizen: The Prague Affair.
Yes.
Why don't you give everybody a little bit of an elevator pitch, and then tell us what you can tell us about the plot.
Okay, well, realistically, it's I want to call her a damaged, trained CIA operative, assassin, if you will, that gets sent to Prague to thwart a terrorist act that's going to take place at the Grand Prix, the first ever Czechoslovakian Formula One Grand Prix. And in trying to stop that, she stumbles upon a much bigger plot that has worldwide implications that this is only a little part of. And there's a really delicious bad guy, like they call him, a very psychopath, that is behind all this. And of course, he's really kind of I don't want to call him a two-faced, but he is. He comes across as a very gregarious socialite who is responsible for putting on the Grand Prix, but in reality, he's a mercenary terrorist with an army.
Okay. And you say that she's an assassin, and you say that she's damaged. We were just talking before we got started that I guess she's going to get a little bit more damage during the events of the book. What kind of got you... I know that you have a background for a long stretch backwards with working in film and live TV production and everything. Was those some of the things that you got to work on, that was kind of where you felt comfortable telling a story from? Or
actually, I really got the bug into the whole thing the first time I read The Bourne Identity by Robert Ludlum. It just caught my fancy as far as, and I was really an avid reader. I love James Michener and James Clavell, and I love the intensity of stuff that happens with the way it builds. So reading The Bourne Identity, it just thrilled me. You know, I stayed with it the whole time, and I've become a big Clive Cussler fan, and I'm a Michael Connelly fan, and and my book doesn't necessarily fit on their shelf because of the character and all that, but I really like that genre. So, and of course, as a film guy, I've always been immersed in all kinds of film projects and in all kinds of films, watching films. Chinatown was the one that made me want to be a producer. I mean, just absolutely, that story had those twists and turns, and it made me go, oh, really? Oh, really? So I like that idea. The one that really got me going was when I was really young. I saw a movie called Hombre with Paul Newman, and he's kind of a half-breed, and he rescues these people on stage. They kill him at the end, and I'm thinking, they just killed Paul Newman. How could they do that? And I've always taken the tack that anytime I can do that to my audience and make them feel that kind of a shock factor is good. I'm all into that as a good thing. So for me, being able to take a story in a direction and put a twist in it that they're not expecting, I thought was really a good idea.
Well, I get the idea, since it's the first installment of a trilogy and whatnot. It kind of gets you the opportunity, especially in that first book, to where the story is complete, the arc is finished, but maybe even if they did do some accomplishments, your protagonist hasn't really won anything, and you kind of the first one, at least in my opinion, is the best story portion, where you would you want to throw that in and really get them, I guess, like you said, a little bit darker, a little bit more grittier for the next installment.
And there's a common thread that runs from the first into the second, and from the second into the third, that is still driving her, so that's, and it almost drives her, I don't want to say to madness, but there's definitely an obsessive nature with how she's driven it. So
that's great. And you might have said it, but what is your main character's first name?
Oh, her name is Sloane Harper.
Sloane, that's it.
Yeah, and we actually, I met a model on Instagram from Milan, Italy, and she had these pictures that she was posting that reminded me of stills from a movie. And I said, hey, and I'm into the whole, a picture's worth 1,000 words and all that. And I said, well, your pictures tell these great stories. And she goes, well, what do you mean? And I picked out about 5 of them, and I started saying, well, this is what I imagine is happening here, and this is what I think is happening here. And she was like, oh no, that's too close to home. And finally I hit on one. I said, and this one looks like you just turned around and saw someone that you thought was dead because you killed them, and she loved it, so we started developing the character as a model who was actually a trained assassin. And so she helped me, this model Stella again in Milan, helped me to develop the character. We coming up with the name, and then it was the backstory a little bit like that. And then I just started kind of taking off with it from there. So it had its influences from the modeling world, and then at the same time it had my little bit dark themed imagination that took it, and she liked it from what I was doing with the character and all that stuff. So
that's great. Oh, go ahead. Finish
and we actually incorporate a fashion show into the book, as far as part of it, with because that's part of her cover, is that she goes off as a fashion model. So
well, that's very
get
cool.
her from point A to point B.
Yeah, I like that you took a picture and made a character out of it, and then you got some input from the lady who was in the picture, who made the look in the first place. That's cool. Yeah. Sloane is a very CIA assassin name, if I do say so myself.
And the last, well, and it was this ring. We said, okay, I was gonna name her like Anna Marie something, and she goes, no, that's too many syllables. And so
okay.
So I just started searching. We came up with about 10 possibilities, and we hit on Sloane with an E on the end, Sloane with an E. And then the last name, I went, well, okay, so maybe Mercer, Harper. I go, Harper, and her dad is Frank Harper, and he was an agent with the CIA as well. So there was that whole tie-in right there, and that got me going. That really kind of gelled part of the backstory right there.
It's funny what can make your head click.
Yeah.
Would you say, like, when you were putting the story together, as far as like with the stakes and everything, that like you said, global conspiracy and everything, did you have the story mostly put together? You were looking for a character, or what did it come out of the creation of Sloane? Well,
the character, the bad guy, kind of came. I kind of knew where it was going originally. I knew that I had this bad guy. I knew we were going to Czechoslovakia with it. I don't ask me how. I just said, well, Prague's a great European city, and it's got a great ring to it, you know. So, and at first I developed him as, and I'm a Formula One fan, and I went, well, heck, why not do a Formula One race there? But his whole thing was that he is, you know, and his background has some tragedy in it too, as far as how he became this mercenary and a real sociopathic, psychopathic, you know, doesn't mind killing people on a whim. Okay. So he became easily to develop, and then it was all about the plot about, okay, so what happens at the Grand Prix? I don't, you know, that was part of the thing of, okay, he's staging it. So, but what do I do for the, you know, for his thing? And it became a twofold terror act of something that happens there that's kind of a trigger for other terror that happens worldwide with this other larger organization that he's just kind of a cog in.
Okay.
You know, and with some very, very powerful men, and I allude to the Panama Papers and stuff like that, and they're in Mallorca, you know, and they're kind of calling the shots for him, but he's like a loose cannon. They can't quite control him, you know. So you know, and she finds out about it, and she goes after the organization after, you know, and I won't give away I won't do a spoiler alert on what happens, but there's
one thing I didn't tell you to say whenever we were first talking was, if I ask you a question you can't answer, just tell me to read the damn book. But you
should read the book anyway. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah. A long time ago when the channel was new, that was a whole segment on where I'd ask you questions about the plot towards the end, and then once I was stepping over the line of something that you really didn't want to spoil, that was the phrase to end the game. But is there some kind of like any connection of any kind in between your big bad and Sloane? That is like do they have any history together? They know each other.
Yeah, you could say that, and it's part of a tragic past.
Okay.
That becomes almost Greek tragedy at the end.
Oh, okay. I shudder to think of like a familial connection when you say Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm getting that weird radar feeling, like I'm approaching stuff we can't talk about. So, how long has that book been out? As far as like since you published it, since you really started like pushing it?
Came out the night before Thanksgiving last year. On the Wednesday night, I think it hit Amazon about 11 o'clock. That I don't know if it was the 23rd or 24th. I don't know what the date was on it, but yeah, the night before Thanksgiving is when it finally became available.
Okay.
And of course, I immediately bought 50 hard copies for author copies to, you know, for promotion and giveaway. You know, so
sure.
I think for me, the most exciting thing was actually holding the physical book in my hand for the first time. That was one of those songs where you just go, wow, it's real. It's a real book. Yeah. You know, so so that was fun.
It's something that we probably ought to talk to people more about a little bit, because I think when I did that for Bleeding the Divine the first time was a really, it was a huge, crazy feeling. And I think I remember turning and just saying, like, I think I'm going to live forever now. Like, because as long as the Amazon's out there, then technically speaking, so
it's going to be there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so are our social media accounts, you know, but that's okay. I'm all right with that.
I behave on mine.
To a point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been exciting, and I just got done last month. I did a book tour up the West Coast. So I picked out about a dozen indie bookstores all the way up the coast, all the way to Seattle. And I said, hey, would you mind if I stop in and give you a copy of the book? I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted to introduce myself and introduce you to the character. And it was great. It was great. One of them actually bought the book from me and bought another copy and put it in the window of the store, and another one put it on their shelf, you know, for their first shelf when you come in. And the other ones were very gracious, even though they don't normally take self-published books and that. And so I did kind of a travel log and did a piece on each one of these stores as well and posted it. So it's kind of like I wanted to give them tribute as well for being an independent bookstore, you know. So that was a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome thing to do for quid. What is that? Quid pro quo. Everybody's getting something out of it.
Yeah, and it was and we spent about 2 weeks on the road, and we drove the whole time, and it was so it was kind of a joint trip to enjoy, but it was it had this purpose behind it, and I just it was a different way of getting out and promoting it besides the daily. And this, right? The real work happens after the book has come out.
Yes.
Because it's all about the marketing push and and that becomes a grind. It's hard to sometimes. And I've let my foot off the gas a little bit lately because I just got back from the trip and all that stuff. But I'm starting to recycle back through because we're working on the audiobook right now. We're right in the middle of editing the audiobook.
Okay.
So
how did you come across your narrator?
Auditions. I have a company that said, well, we can put the whole thing together for you. And I said, well, okay, well, let's put it out for some auditions. The first two I hated, and I actually said, this is how I anticipate it's supposed to sound, and I gave them kind of a rundown on it. And because I said, it has to sound like they are telling me the story.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It can't sound mechanical. It's got to sound like someone is really reading the story to me, like they're reading it to a group of people, So I auditioned. So I got one. Her name is Anna. I can't remember her last name, but she has finished the first run through with it. I've listened to half of it so far, and because you're listening for the thing. Okay, here's a double tap on a word here, and you need to pull that out. And this was a mispronunciation here, which means you're really paying attention to it again.
Right. It's like re-editing the book.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I've sent those notes off, and so she's corrected that. Now I've got to finish reading the second part, and then. I don't know when that's going to come out, but right now the next thing is to start promoting that. Hey, and I've done some of this already. That coming soon, the audio version of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, did you say like roughly how long before you think that that'll be ready and out there for people to get their hands on? Not sure yet.
No. I've just said coming soon. And I put together a bunch of CapCut reels that I could put out there because I'm still a filmmaker and an editor and all that. So I go in and I've got one company that does a lot of still media for me for promotion and tactics, which are really, they're great looking, they're something I couldn't do. And they're doing all the captioning for it and that. And then I've taken some of their stuff and I'm incorporating those plus images I've got from the cover model into CapCut reels. The cover model is a model from Sweden who I have a license deal with. And she has a 4,000 picture portfolio. She started modeling probably when she was 14, and she was in the Swedish military. So she's got all these shots of her with machine guns and weaponry. So I'm like, oh, well, of course, it's perfect. So so she's my spy, So I have a deal with her, a percentage deal with her, and she's also a podcaster and a singer and a songwriter and a brilliant person. Leah Berg is her name.
Wow.
And so I've taken a bunch of her stuff and incorporated that into CapCut reels for some of the promotion regular for the book, and then also now for the audiobook. So
when you say like capture reels and everything, that's like little book trailers that you're making, or stuff at least designed to kind of.
Yeah, CapCut is the app I've been working in because I've got a phone version of it. So, and it's an editing program, but they'll have templates in there, which are really cool because you can take one of their templates and just put your own images in there, and then you can edit it from there. So, really pretty easy to come up with some stuff. You can change the music in it, and that kind of stuff. And because I have a library of stock music that I can use, and so I've been able to put out stuff that looks really tight, nice and flashy. Most of them are maybe in the 15-second range, something like that, with a lot of splash and sizzle, and then you're tagging it at the end, coming soon, on audio, and then the last thing I'm showing, of course, is always the cover of the book, which of course I always have the book with me, at some point in time. So I'm working on some of that stuff to push the audio, and I'm just. For me, it was never about, I think it's just, I want to tell the story. That was the main thing. It was never really about, I'm going to make a bunch of money. You don't make a bunch of money. Unless you're James Patterson or one of the guys on the A-list, it's really hard to make money at it,
Yeah.
I'd be pleased if I broke even on everything. That would be a win-win. But,
breaking even is a nice dream.
Just want to tell a story. That's the big thing right there. Is just I love storytelling. It's the main thing.
Yeah, and I want to get into a little bit about your storytelling experiences and how, you feel that tweaked a little bit, or if it did, I should say, while you were writing Model Citizen. So just two questions, and they'll kind of bounce right off of each other. What was your favorite part of the story, if you can tell us that, or what's your favorite part you could tell us about? And then to bleed into the writing portion of the discussion, what was your favorite part to write?
Oh, well, and I'm going to take it in reverse. Because my writing style is different than anybody else's that I can imagine.
Okay.
I write like I'm watching a movie play out on the screen in my head. So I'm literally describing a scene that is happening, like it's playing out in a scene in a movie. And that's what I'm writing down, or I'm writing the scene that I want to see happen on the screen. And I'm literally visualizing what's happening action-wise while it's going on while I'm writing it. So for me, that was real exciting that I didn't write it like I was writing chapters. I even talked to my producing partner. I go, well, I was writing these scenes. He goes, you're writing scenes? No, you're writing a book. It's chapters. I go, no, this was scenes. I was writing scenes. And I think sometimes it was because there's an ebb and flow to it, right? There's an ebb and flow to the story. I always believe that sometimes you let your audience breathe a little bit, right? So sometimes those moments of breathing were kind of like, finally I get to rest for a minute after this terror going on, and then knowing that they're plotting another move to try to stop him. It's this constant trying to stop him, almost like a cat and mouse thing going on, and not always succeeding. She has a team of commandos and she loses almost all of them in one part. So that damages, right?
Yeah.
So and it's the whole thing is like, is she going to get this guy? Because she's coming to the point where she absolutely hates him. The hate that if she could get him on the ground and put her hands around his throat and choke him to death while she looks in his eyes, that's what she would want to do. So I loved watching her as a character get more and more incensed with him, and he has this huge ego, so he thinks, oh, well, no one can do this, and he's getting more and more PO'd about her, that you meddling kids.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Only it's like I can't believe it's her again. So there's this real thing that's going on before them where they're both becoming more hateful of one another throughout this whole thing. And some of the, I want to call them hand-to-hand combat scenes between them are pretty brutal, and she doesn't always get the best of him. She gets beat up pretty bad a couple times in it, and she just keeps coming at him and the same thing. And, near the end, it's like she loses her grasp on him in a big way, but there's some other players involved, her handler and all that. So, and I kind of knew where it was going, as far as I knew where it had to go from point A, where she starts, to the final showdown, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
But I didn't expect some of the other things that happened along the way. I thought, well, I kind of know it's going to go here, and then all of a sudden it would go off there, and I would go, oh, where are we going with this now? And I would go, oh, I know where we're going with this, and it would lead into something else. That I go, well, I wasn't expecting that, but it every time it happened, it did something that added even more to the story for me. So it took it to a different level every time. So that was a lot of fun.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, and when I wrote it, believe it or not, I wrote it in Gmail, of all places.
Really?
I wrote it every time I would write myself. I would write it in Gmail and send it to myself in my Outlook file, because I would copy and paste a certain section of to send to the model in Milan on Instagram, and I could only send so much in a part of it. So I would write enough that I knew I could send her this part and bounce it off her. And I would say, what do you think of that? So she became kind of like a muse in a way, a literary muse for me.
Gotcha.
Like the fashion show. I'd go, what do you think of the fashion show? And she goes, that was so perfect. That's exactly how it would be. And I know nothing about fashion show.
I was like, great guess.
Yeah. So stuff like that happened,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny that you wrote it in email.
I know, and now I'm writing it all in Word. Well, I would eventually copy and paste it all into a Word doc, and then send that as a PDF off to the editors.
Right.
And I was very fortunate to have a really, really great line editor on it.
Okay.
Some people don't understand how important someone like that can be.
Oh.
To taking your I don't want to call it dribble, but to taking it and turning it into something that's in some ways the turn up a phrase, for me was something that I guess you call it a pantser. I'm writing with the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
And you don't always. Sometimes for me, I always call it. You have a lot of indigestible fat in there.
Okay.
So good line editor knows how to get rid of that fat. Knows how to take a phrase that maybe you stretched out one way and get rid of some of the excess verbiage and turn it into something that really has a bigger impact. And so for me, that was a learning experience. So I'm becoming a more deliberate writer now because of that. I'm still writing from the seat of my pants, but I'm being more, I don't want to call Hemingway-ish, but I'm going back in and looking at what I do and saying, do I need that word?
Yeah. Ryan is also my co-host, is also a pantser, and he's a bit of a purist about I won't call it editing as you go, but being efficient with the words he uses as he's going. It makes him. I'm an outliner, and I will cut it in the second draft or third, as it turns out. But I could see. That's one thing that I would never try to change anybody on, because I think it's just as valuable being efficient the first time with the words that you use and being deliberate. Okay, and how long did it take you from conception to starting to write, and then from writing to publishing?
I think it took about. The first time I saw the image and talked to Stella about it was, I think it was maybe in like April of 24.
Okay.
And then I really got into the writing thing probably by end of May. We had kind of developed the character and then I said, okay, I have to create her backstory. And that's where I started coming up with the whole concept of what was going. And then I just started into the storyline. And then I finished writing it. I finished the first draft in January of 25, and it was 400 pages, which is way too long, and by then I had found an editor, and actually I found a company that would help me to do certain things that I knew I needed as an author. I'm not afraid to spend money, doing certain things, and I'm fortunate that I work full time, so I can do some of that. But they helped me get the website together, and they helped me with some of the graphics and all that, and some of the tactics. But they lined me up with the editors and that. And then the edit went on all the way from about, I want to say they really got into it about like February or March is when they really dug in, because I was still going back in and doing some fine tuning on my own.
Okay.
And then got it to them, and then they started working on the edit. I got their main edits back probably by September or October of that year, and they really tuned it down. They went from that 400 pages to 280 something pages.
Oh wow!
Without losing the story. They kept the story intact, which was really cool. And I told them, I said, I want it to still have my voice. I don't want it to sound. I don't want your editors to give it their own feel and voicing on it. This is my story. It's got to remain my story. And they did that for me. They honored that. And then I went to the whole copyright thing. It's like I copyrighted the original first draft, and that only took about 3 weeks. And then the new administration came in, and it shook up the Library of Congress, right? Which is the copyright office is there. So the second go round took 6 months to get the copyright.
Wow. Okay.
But I was determined. I said, I've got to have the copyright. In the meantime, it was like, well, we should still put this out, even before you have it. And I said, yeah, okay, let's do that. So at that point in time, I did the final proof on it. I went through, did the final proofing on it, see if there were any typos, found a couple things in there, did the corrections on it, sent it back to the editor, said, here's what I found. you know, so let's tune this up, make sure this is correct here. And then they got it ready to go, and they did all the formatting and got the ISBNs and all that, got it for Amazon, then got it on Ingram and Spark, or Ingram Spark. So that if I want to sell it myself. It's funny because I get people to go, well, is it on Ingram? I go, well, it's on Ingram Spark, but that's not the same thing. I'm learning that Ingram is the big boy, you know, and Ingram Spark is like the little kid cousin of them, you know. So, and I've not figured out how to get it on Ingram proper for regular bookstores and libraries. So,
it's
trying to do that.
It's what I'm the next book I publish is I'm probably going to go the Ingram Spark route, and I'll try to figure that out too.
But, yeah. And I'm actually, this one I'm doing now, I'm actually going to try and do the traditional publishing route, you know, really? Which is real. Oh, and I'm scared to death of it because now we're talking the query trenches and I'm studying under an agent right now as far as here's what you can expect, and here's what the agent expects from you. And this is what you need to do if you want an agent to get interested in it. But then get ready for the long game. Because they said, you know, they'll find an editor. It might be 2 or 3 years, you know, before it gets out there. And I'm thinking, I might be dead by then, you know. So I don't know. But I'm willing to go that route, and it's not. I think it's just because it's just another milestone for me. If I can get that, I got an agent deal a while back for a movie thing. So that was really an exciting moment. It's like, you know, and you can't get excited about getting signed, you know. Yeah. I mean, getting signed doesn't mean anything, right? Getting it where you get the okay from the other people that say, yes, we'll put this out, you know, and then, you know.
That's something you know a whole lot more about than I do.
Yeah.
But that reminded me that you did make a note in your submission that you were working on adapting Model Citizen into a screenplay too.
I have a producing partner up in the Phoenix area, and we've looked it over, and for us, we want to do the screenplay based on just the whole book to begin with. But I already know it's like, okay, I know where to pick it up from. I don't need to have the very initial first scene in the book. Okay. I know exactly where to pick it up so that we pick it up with action. You know, I want to pick it up where the audience goes, oh, she's arriving in Prague, you know, and it's starting off. So, and it's just really tough because he works full time, I work full time, you know, and people go, how do you do it? And I go, I have no idea how I do it.
I gave up sleep. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I have it every once in a while as a treat. So for me, it's still always been about a film thing. You know, it's always been about seeing if I can take something to another level. Yeah.
You know, which is, you know, but the more I study it, it's harder to get a traditional publishing deal than it is to get a movie deal.
Only because
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. I've browsed the horror movies on Tubi. There are some people where it's too easy to get yourself a movie deal. In some cases, and traditional publishing.
And the only thing is that in the case of movies, you still have to get an agent. It's just a different kind of agent. You know, that is easier to get an agent for that than it is for the book thing, because the book thing is all about, you know, how can I craft this person for a career? You know, whereas the and it's still a product. It's still all about a product. You know, to anybody, it's like, can I sell this product? Where will this product fit in the marketplace? You know, they talk about the comps. You know, I can't do a comp where I say, well, it's like Jason Bourne meets Mata Hari. You know, because people who read that stuff today are going to go, what the hell is that? I don't know. You know, I'm Jason Bourne from a movie, but you know, so trying to find those things that I know nothing about, and of course then finding time to read. Oh my gosh, you know, it's like, I have to read again. You know, so all those things play out. They'll play out.
Yeah. Well, you've spent a really long time working in the more visual media space and industry. I think the most important question, or the one that I was the most excited to ask about you in regards to that, you already sort of half answered as to like, how did that affect your writing or the telling of your story or the crafting of your story? You talked about how you kind of wrote your book like you would write a screenplay and then built it from there. But did you notice it affecting maybe the way that you wrote or build a scene or a setting in your story, or what happens to characters? Kind of envisioning maybe like your narrative eye as the camera, or is it something, any kind of effect at all?
Yeah, for me, it was literally like watching it play out like it's being shot.
Okay.
Like when I'm and the way I'm describing it, I'm not necessarily describing that, the close up of it, but I'm describing it as though this is playing out on a movie screen literally in front of me, and this is the action that's happening.
Right, and this is what I want the reader to notice the most. Kind of thing.
And I want them to know. I want them to feel the action. I want them to. I've always believed that good storytelling is about pushing emotional buttons. And if I can make them feel something, if I can make them feel the pain of a character, or the glee of a character, or the hatred in a character, or something like that, then I know I'm doing my job one way or another. And that's whether they read it like that or whether they see it on screen. I want it to impact them in a way where they walk away going, wow.
Gotcha. Have you gotten any kind of responses from any readers about that yet? Any kind of feedback on, or did you do like an ARC dealio before you published?
I didn't know anything about ARCs or beta readers or anything. I went into this knowing nothing about publishing. I just went, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. It's going to get on Amazon. And maybe, who knows, maybe Amazon Studios will look at it and go, which never happens, because it's not big enough, but, I'm actually working on what they call the PR boxes that you send to the literary influencers. Where I put the book in there, I build a mission file, I give them all kinds of things in there that have to do with the story, like Czechoslovakian crystals and perfume samples from Milan, and a passport to assassination and stuff like that. And then and what they'll do is they'll do what they call a box opening video for all their followers. They'll go, oh, look at this, and I want it to look like where it says confidential, your eyes only, and that kind of stuff, black, and so she opens it up and there's all this stuff about the file and the mission and all this. So, I've got a Formula One keychain and just stuff like that. So, but I actually ended up, when I put it out, I just got it out there, and I picked up, I got about 16 reviews, really, and of course, Amazon, their algorithm for reviews is, well, this person doesn't do a lot of buying stuff on Amazon, so we're going to kill that review. But I've had a solid 10 reviews. I'm at about 4.9. Almost all of them were 5-star reviews that I got, and I'm happy to say none of them were people that I knew. I think one person in there that I knew, who, and they alluded to it being cinematic because they knew because they were a director of mine on a movie.
Okay,
but I got some really, really, really good feedback from people as far as what they thought about the style of it and the story itself. So it really made me feel like I did my job as far as telling the story.
Well, congratulations for that, for sure. Do you have like a favorite comment that you've seen that you've got either by review or just, in person?
Yeah, I had 2 of my reviews. One of my reviews alluded to John le Carré, and another one alluded to my style reminding him of Ian Fleming.
Wow. Okay.
So
high praise.
That to me was like, when I read those, I went, oh my gosh, it's like, okay, I can die now. I'm fine. So those were things that I just went, wow, because I didn't try to copy anybody's style or anything like that. But,
right.
When someone says, that this resonates with me in that fashion.
Right. If it makes me feel the same way.
Yeah. And some of the people wrote some stuff that really got it in the story. The whole idea of mixing the fashion world with the spy thing gave the character a complexity, that kind of thing. So, and that was, and really that was the aim, was to build a complex character that lives in not just one world. So,
and with, as far, I hate to go like mix you up and everything from what I told you to do, but as far as like things with Sloane, remind me, like, how old is she when like this?
She's about 24 at this point in time.
And how long
Yeah.
has she been like trained and active with
Well,
the CIA and everything?
well, she started modeling at 14 years old, of course, because the modeling world picks them young, and young and tall and beautiful,
Yeah.
and her mother was a model who worked for one of the houses in Italy, and her father, of course, she was on a shooting range with her dad when she was 8, learning how to use a gun.
Okay.
So you could say that was sort of the start of the training, and then there's a tragedy that happens, and she almost dies from a drug overdose at one point in time. They bring her back, and she gets in this confrontation with 3 guys, and she kills them with a gun.
Okay.
When she's trying to, and finally her handler sees her. Her handler sees her in some bar, basically kick some prostitute's ass who's giving her a bad time, and as she's walking out, and he knows her already. He knows her because of her father, so and he goes, "You come with me, and I'm going to," and he ends up, so probably I want to say at about 20 is when she starts her real training, to learn how to be an operative and an assassin, and more of an operative than an assassin. Assassination is just part of the job.
Something you sometimes have to do while you're out in the field. Okay.
Yeah. So,
was there any particular reason that you wanted her to be that age, or do you think that bled from the model that you were talking to and working with?
I think it came partially from the model, but it also came from the story of what happens with her losing control as a teen, and where she's at in her life. Because how teens, sometimes things tragically go off kilter, and that kind of happens to her. And I won't do that spoiler. There's a real spoiler in there.
Read the damn book.
Yeah, but coming out of that, she gets a second chance at life, is what happens. And she says, "I'm never going to let that happen again." So she pulls herself up, even though she's coming out of a really bad, substance situation, and then this confrontation occurs, and it really wakes her up. And then later on, and that's kind of it's really I don't like flashbacks that much. It's just a very short flashback while she's on her way driving. That she just, I think the whole thing lasts about 2 pages. That she talks about the whole thing, just to remind her as she's driving. So it's a real quick one, and it's got, and there's a lot of action that happens in it, and that to me is real important. That you don't just dwell on the thoughts of something. You've got to have something. The thoughts better lead to something that happens.
A perfectly good reason to have a flashback. I'll defend good flashbacks all day long.
Conflict and resolve. That's what, I learned that a long time ago. I got into a deal with Walter Koenig, who was the original Chekhov on Star Trek. And we had produced a movie that he loved it because we did it out of our own. We made it out of the spare change and lint in our pockets, and it was a sci-fi action adventure picture. And he sent us a script and said, "Would you guys be interested in producing this script of mine?" And he's a really great writer. And so we flew him into Phoenix for a meeting, and we had done this short that we had. It was kind of a horror short, and we premiered it at Alice Cooperstown. And we had sent it to him ahead of time, and we're having dinner with him. We go, "So Walter, what'd you think of this?" And he goes, "I hated it. You guys need to go to ASU and take a screenwriting course and learn what real storytelling is." Ripped us to shreds, And I learned right then and there. He goes, "Well, first of all, your characters aren't compelling enough. They're not pushing my buttons like I need them to do, and you don't have any conflict or resolve. None. You're flatlining on your story." And he goes, "Whatever conflict you had halfway through your movie, it's over. So why even tell the rest of the story?" So I got really pissed off, and not at him. I got pissed off about what we were doing. And so I learned right there, it's like, if you don't have conflict and resolve, you don't have a story. You have to build conflict, and you have to resolve it. You can resolve it into more conflict. That's fine. Right?
Sure.
And you don't have to resolve something in a nice way, but you have to build that conflict. And you look at it, and even the best comedy has great conflict.
Yeah, tension drives the plot.
Tension drives the plot, and then somehow it resolves, and it's a roller coaster. And that's kind of how I describe this book. Is this book has become it's a roller coaster ride you get on.
But once you keep that in mind, it's kind of hard to have that moment where you do let your character breathe.
Yeah.
That's where the conflict comes for me personally. Is like, well, there's more stuff's coming.
Yeah.
But they also haven't slept in 3 days, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think the breathing thing for me is just not so much a breathing, but a reflection. Let them reflect on what they just got done impactful, and then also knowing that, oh gosh, he's going to give us more here pretty quick.
Yeah, they start to recognize like, oh, everything's too calm.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's going to be an explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, it sounds like you have a really like high pace, but not unrealistic in the sense where, she does get a moment to kind of.
Yeah, it's not one of these things where like every 5 seconds there's a gun battle.
Right.
I mean, there's thought that goes into it. There's some mission planning that happens. There's some techno stuff. There's some real spy stuff that happens in the background, as far as surveillance and that kind of stuff from other people, and her thing is to put it all into play.
Sure. So, romance?
No, really there isn't. There's I think there's only one allusion early on that, as a good agent, sometimes she's had to sleep with both men and women to get what she wanted. But that's about as far as it is. Yeah. So no, she's just caught up into this. I think the romance is she's in love with trying to kill this guy. That's as close as it gets to real romance. And I'm not going to count it out down the line because of a certain character that is in the first one that will probably make an appearance in number 2.
Okay.
And maybe number 3. But there's these threads that go on between, what happened in the first one starts, it has something that follows through into the second one that she's not ready for. She doesn't expect it to rear its head, but it does. And then there's another thing that happened early on that led to some real downfall for her because of someone else that goes through to the third one, and because it made her really mad, so she's, and now and in the end she's like she still dwells on it in the back of her head. It's like
I can't believe that happened.
It's a slow burn, burn fuse that's going.
Okay.
And the new one takes place in Brazil, of all places.
Yeah,
it takes place. So the Amazon is a character, if you think about it, because all the danger of the Amazon, and it takes place at Rio. So I had the Formula One in the first one. Now I've got Rio going, or Carnival. It takes place at Carnival. Yeah. Right. So I got that as a kind of a setting piece for it. So.
Do you know which awesome giant international World's Fair type scenario the third one's going to be taking place in yet?
It actually takes place in Washington, D.C.
Of course. All right.
Let's put it this way: it takes place at Langley.
Okay.
It focuses on her kind of not going home because she wasn't from there originally, but it brings it home for something that is she's trying to, I guess, conclude something there in a big way.
Yeah. I feel like the Fitz of Writing is probably the first people you've interviewed with who have gotten that detail out of you, so I'm going to pat myself on the back.
Yeah. I have no idea what the titles are going to be, but I got a couple working titles, but not for that. Well, actually, I do. I have and I won't give those away, especially the third one, because that would give away what's going to happen.
Not a problem. I've got what I came for.
Okay. And the writing thing, I get excited about it. I'm kind of jonesing to get back into my rhythm with it. I kind of got out of the rhythm with it a little bit with the tour and all that, and I'm really, and I just got done getting my commercial drone certification. So for the last 3 weeks, I've been studying like a madman to pass the FAA certification test, which I took today, which I thought I failed, but I didn't. So that's consumed me like lava for the last 3 weeks, getting ready for it. So it's time for me to take the computer home from work that night and get back into the writing.
excited for you to be able to get to that. And I'll go ahead and say that we're getting pretty close to being out of time as far as like the length of our interviews go. Without stealing anything from the end there, but I do hope that we hear from you again when you release the second installment, whatever it's named.
Definitely.
And
well,
I just want
you got my email address, so if you send me an address, I'll actually send you a signed copy of the first book.
Oh, really?
And then when the second one's out, I'll make sure you get a copy of that too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I absolutely will do that. I will. But for anybody who wants to get themselves a copy of the book,
right.
Where do you have a preferred place that you want them to buy it from, or where all can they get it?
Well, I think Amazon is the natural, from that standpoint. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and ebook on Amazon. And I don't even track this stuff at all, So however they get it, like I said, for me, it was never about trying to make money. I just would love it if people enjoy the story. And I love it too if somebody leaves a review. That's a real important factor from a standpoint of, how we find out how we did with it, especially if it's someone we don't know. And then also it's something that can play into how well Amazon views it. So.
That was what I would follow up with. Reviews are a great way, especially from verified purchasers and everything. It's a great way to tell Amazon or anybody, like, hey, you should show this to more people that have this buying habit, and they'll like it too, kind of thing. So that's definitely, get RH scores.
And of course, the people that do buy it and read it, I like it when they tell their friends about it. Say, I just got done with this book. Here, read it. So.
Absolutely. And everybody get the book, support RH Scores and his. Do you have what is the whole series called? Model Citizen or
Model Citizen? Yeah, the main title is always Model Citizen because she is the model citizen, if you will. And then with a double play, the play on the words of the model and the citizen, and then it's always going to have something to do with the plot line or the location, something like that for the second part of it. So.
I am utterly ashamed to admit that I did not put the whole model thing together.
It was really, for me, it was really a play. I kind of model citizen. Originally it was based on, I had this story idea for a beautiful assassin. It was going to be my graphic novel called Agent X If Looks Could Kill, and I had another model that I did a caricature of her, kind of an animation type cover for it that I did that. So that was really the stemming idea kind of running in the back of my head when this whole thing kind of started anyway, was I wanted a beautiful assassin. And then this came along and just took over the whole frame of it.
I'm going to go a little bit over on time, but that did reminded me and made me curious. What was it that about the graphic novel that, like you said, kind of felt a little constrictive and that made you decide to just turn it into a book? What kind of pushed you over the edge with that?
I don't know. I think it was just when I started writing it to flesh out the idea of where it was going. And by the time I got done with the first 3 scenes, the idea of the graphic novel was gone.
Okay.
It was just here's this story that's starting to take out a life of its own, and I don't want to say that it wrote itself, but there were parts of it that definitely led me in areas I wasn't ready for. But it was just really, I want to say, a therapeutic thing, because it just let me run. I wasn't worried about it. In some ways, that's more comforting to be a pantser than it is to be a deliberate writer. Because a deliberate writer, you're going back and saying, "Oh, okay, I got to change that really quick. I need to change that now because I need every word to have impact, and I want the agent to go, ooh, yes, let me keep turning pages because of this, And part of me wants to not care about that. Part of me just wants to write, So
I kind of feel like that. Yeah, it would be a broken up process if you're doing something that's more visual, like a graphic novel, and maybe when you're writing. Not that, the words aren't dancing around on the page or anything, but you're reading them in a much more motioned way.
Yeah.
Well, I could see that.
Well, and it is very visual too. You're developing the artwork that goes with it and that kind of stuff to make it so that in a way it's like a glorified storyboard. is really the way I view something like that. And I'm actually working on a children's book too, believe it or not. I'm working on a children's illustrated book about the critters that are in my yard called The Little Dragon, about the little striped lizards in my yard. And of course, all the critters have human characteristics, you know. So I've got a concept of an art cover that I'm looking for an illustrator for to help me with that. Actually,
all right.
Yeah. And it's one of those ones where it's a paragraph per page, you know, and that's it. You know, so.
Yeah. Well, if an illustrator should watch this video and want to get a hold of you on any of your socials, or anybody wants to follow you to see when the Model Citizen 2 comes out,
right.
Where's the best places to follow you?
I'm on Instagram as RH Score. That's one place that they can get a hold of me, is on Instagram, and also on Threads, which is related to Instagram. Those are the main places that I'm pushing as far as the book idea, and probably the easiest way to message me and that kind of stuff. So if they look for RH Score, and I used to write under a pseudonym, H. Bermansky. That's a long story. Don't even. That was from pseudonyms used in the film business, where it's like I can't have Ralph Score and Ralph Score and Ralph Score and Ralph Score. So I have to create these names of people that are part of my lineage that work on the project. So H. Bermansky became Harvey Berman became a character, a continuous part of my crew, and I finally went, let's just make him Bermansky, you know. So it became Harvey Bermansky, and for a while I was going to write under that name, you know, and I went, nah, just write under my own name, so my friends actually know it's me.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you'll announce that on your Instagram and on your Threads if you decide to go back the other way.
Yeah.
But I'll put the links for any and all of the socials that you sent us in the video description below for anybody who wants to follow you, a purchase link for your book so that anybody can get a copy. If anybody has a question for Ralph that I did not ask, please put it below in the comments. He'll try to keep an eye on the comment section and get back to you.
Definitely.
Anything that you really want to say to anybody before we call it a night?
No, I just appreciate anybody who, I think the same thing that I thought about the independent bookstores, right? I think anybody that takes an interest in literature and applauds it along the way, because sometimes people don't appreciate the written word anymore, you know, because it's not instant gratification sometimes, you know, but there's still a big group of people worldwide who likes reading and who likes great stories, and that's what it's all about. Is, you know, if you like good stories, I hope you enjoy this one too.
Perfect. I really appreciate you coming on. This was fun. I hope we get to see you again. I'll probably let Ryan interview you if you come back. But we'll see. I don't know.
Okay.
I might have you back on.
Appreciate it very much, Sean.
Sure.
It's been a lot of fun.
I guess we're gonna go ahead and fade to black.